This is the video for example 1 from lesson 29 in the grade 8 module 4 book found on page 180. So in example 1, starting off kind of simple in this lesson, just gives us the sum of two numbers is 361. The difference between the two numbers is 173. What are the two numbers? When we're doing these, there's a checklist of 3 items you want to cover. That checklist is first to define the variables. So what are the variables in this one? Remember, variables stand for an unknown amount. In this case, in example 1, well, they say the sum of two numbers and then the difference between the two numbers, and they give us the sum is 361, the difference is 173. We don't know what the two numbers are, though. There are a whole bunch of numbers that can add up to 361, and there are a whole bunch of numbers that can subtract to get 173, but there is a specific pair of numbers that can do both. So let's let's define our variables. We'll use x. We'll say x is one of the two numbers. So x, one of the numbers, and we'll say y is the other number. Okay, so not too complicated in this case. There we go. So we defined our variables. Crucial step. Step number 2. Step number 2 is to write our equations. In this case, we have to come up with our equations. So what are the equations we have? Well, I know that every equation has an equal sign, so let's start out with that. And this one's kind of simple. It just says the sum of two numbers. Well, sum means addition. And then the two numbers we're talking about, one of them is x, because we just said x is one of the numbers, and the other one is y. So x plus y equals, and the sum is 361. Then, similar but not the same, it says difference between the two numbers is 173. So I'm going to put equal sign. Difference means subtraction. The difference is between the two numbers, so we'll put x minus y equals 173. Something to keep in mind of something that might popped up in your head is that with subtraction, the order matters. How do we know to put x first and y second? Well, in this case, there is no specific detail on which number x has to be and which number y has to be. We just want to make sure that after the subtraction, we have a positive 173 as our difference. We'll talk about that once we get into the toward the end of the example. So we wrote our equations. Step number 3, save the best for last, is going to be to determine solutions. So to determine solutions, we can use one of the 3 methods that we learned prior to this lesson. We learned how to determine solutions to a system by graphing. We learned how to do it by substitution or algebraically. And then the third one is that we learned how to do it using elimination, where we add the equations together. We're going to use elimination in this case because I look and I say, oh, we have a positive y, and right below we have negative y. So that's going to be super easy to eliminate one of the variables. So let's see, we'll add them together. X plus x, remember there's an invisible 1 in front of each, so that gives us 2x. Positive 1y plus negative 1y cancels out. Down below, 361 plus 173 gives us 534. All right. From there, we just got to find out what x is. Super easy, just divide by 2. X will equal 267. So we found out X. We found X is 267. Now we just have to find Y. Well, to find Y, we kind of know we just use one of the original equations. We substitute in for X. So let's see, X again. We'll use the top equation, which was X plus Y equals 361. I'll put in my 267 for X. Keeping the rest. From here, just gotta subtract 267 from both sides. And we find out that Y equals 94. So Y equals 94. Now, normally I would just be doing a check to make sure that this works using the other equation, but especially want to do this with word problems, because in word problems you always want to take a step back afterward and just make sure that the values you found make sense. So in this case, we got to make sure that the difference between the two numbers is positive 173. So just remember that we're doing X minus Y and that's supposed to equal 173. Now in this one, X was 267, so 267 minus, and then the Y is 94, and if you go ahead and do that, 267 minus 94, you get 173. Which means it was a true statement, so all is well in the world of 8th grade math. We'll just write our solutions as a point. You could write it as 200, well, no. In this one, we wouldn't put a coordinate point because we came up with X and Y. They didn't specifically say that it was being put on a coordinate grid. So just make sure you have X equals 267 and Y equals 94.